Hi everyone, welcome. What you see here are a couple of European nightcrawler worm bins, and these systems are 92 days of age, fed 8 times so far over their lifespans, and it's been 10 days since we checked in on them last. They've been getting a lot of cantaloupe lately. Last time I came in here they got cantaloupe rinds, and even the time before that they were given even a better meal than just cantaloupe rinds. In that case they were given actual cantaloupe, a quarter of a cantaloupe with all the yummy delicious fruit on it still, minus the seeds, but the seeds are something I like to put aside for special use. The feeding zone indicators that were showing us where we last fed are going to get replaced today because I've got a couple days worth of coffee here. Means 2 new coffee filters. I took this stuff out of the refrigerator a while ago, and I'm kind of glad I left these strawberries in the plastic baggie, because while the other things in here, pieces of lettuce, a couple grapes, some cucumber peel, that stuff is also allowing a little bit of moisture to seep out, but the moisture coming out of the strawberries at this point is significant. So yeah, besides the reused feeding zone indicators that are going to become bedding today, they're going to get this piece of newspaper, similar to what I gave them last week. I believe last week too I used a piece of newspaper on which I was drying some chunks of some cantaloupe melon seeds. And I think last time too we might have used some of these large napkins. So in a way we're doing things a bit similar to the last check-in. But one thing I definitely want to do differently is to actually aerate the outer edges of these systems, because what I do once in a while lately, if you've been following along on my channel, you'll know that I just sometimes avoid tilling up or disturbing the outer edges of the systems, since it's something I almost always do, and I've been trying to deliberately not do it just to break away from the routine. Oh, and I almost forgot, I got little chunks of corn cob in this system, and this is one of them. If memory serves me correctly, each system has 2 remaining pieces of corn cob that are still surviving. And if memory serves me, I think 348 days is now the age of those little bits of corn cob. So you might be wondering, hey, if these systems are not even 100 days old, how could those chunks of corn cob be close to a year old already? Well, because the corn cob bits actually accompanied the worms from their old home into these systems. So I kind of kept the day counter going on the corn cobs just to see how long they actually last, because everyone I think who has worm bins kind of knows that corn cobs take forever to break down. But if you were to actually try to quantify what does forever mean in terms of exactly how many days, well, most people wouldn't be able to give you a direct number, but I think pretty soon we're going to be able to confirm that at least a year, because if they're able to make it another, say, 2.5 weeks, and at this rate it seems like they should make it unless I manage to bust them up by accident, then it would be fair to say that corn cobs left undisturbed in the worm bin, allowing only for the worm action and the worm bin activity to do away with the corn cob, then it would take about a year, if not longer, for them to break down. And the cantaloupe melon rind that I gave them last time was on top, but down low was the remainder of the quarter cantaloupe that each system got, on which there was still a good bit of remaining fruit, which I really didn't expect to see any leftovers of today. So if we see any cantaloupe leftovers at this point, I'm assuming it's only going to be what we've seen so far, just the very thin, floppy skin Although, you know, this piece right here, oddly enough, seems to have survived. This might even be the remaining piece of the quarter cantaloupe, just because of its width. Usually the strips of cantaloupe are a little bit thinner, the ones that are hacked up to allow for the melon to be diced up into little cubes for easy eating. But the quarter cantaloupe that each system got 2 check-ins ago, so 10 days ago since the last check-in, 12 days prior, so 22 over 3 weeks. And they still haven't stripped all the melon off that rind over there, oddly enough. I mean, when we came back only 12 days after feeding those large chunks of food, I did sort of expect not only a big worm party, but some leftovers, and we did find exactly that last time we came in here. But this time I sort of didn't really anticipate leftovers. So, I don't know what I just wanted to make sure this wasn't some sort of weird material that's not going to break down, but it's just a piece of paper that was kind of folded over on itself, which is a-okay in my book. So let's get to feeding these little guys. And when we get done, we're definitely going to be tilling up the outer edges since we skipped doing it last time. The thinking behind that was that once in a while it just seems like a nice idea to leave certain sections of the system undisturbed. So come in, give them their food, and leave it be at that. But today we're going to do the customary aeration of the entire system all around. So here this newspaper is not just boring newspaper, but it's got little scraps of cantaloupe melon stuck to it. And, well, the seeds are actually still drying on a fresh piece of paper that I put them on to help them dry even more easily. So I think we can press on to the delicious strawberry. And this might look really delicious, but for whatever reason, I guess it was deemed to be substandard for whatever reason. This would have been one of the contributions I bought home from my mom's house. And they sure smell good and everything else, but I'm not sure why they were given to me to be given to the worms. Perhaps they were nice and fragrant, because they do smell delicious. But perhaps their flavor just wasn't up to speed. Well, whatever the case may be, what the humans didn't get to enjoy, the wormies get to. So, the coffee filters, the nice new ones, we'll set aside. You know, I'll put them off on the side, and in the place of them, bring back these old coffee filters that had been serving the function of feeding zone indicator. And before we get too far along, I want to just continue returning these super fragile but still holding together bits of corn cob, as well as any other leftovers we encountered along the way, back down into the feeding zones before we pile on the rest of the yummy vegetable and fruit that we've got for them. And let's see, there's some cucumber and cucumber peel. Here's some more cucumber peel. I see a lemon peel. This is the end of a head of lettuce. Here's another end of it. I was just wondering if there was a nice juicy piece of cucumber similar to this that we can give to the other system. But I think this system actually received a little bit more of the peel. So to me that looks like a good fair distribution of today's feeding. So let's not stop there when it comes to bedding. It's always a good idea to be nice and generous, and sometimes I use my prepared bedding. Sometimes I just like to grab whatever's handy, grab some newspaper, grab some napkins, whatever the case may be. And in this case, we're doing away with some of these large, lovely napkins to try to work down my inventory of these things, because I've got so many of them. And like I said when we began, we're going to actually go out to the outer edges on this occasion. Something we skipped doing intentionally last time, just to let it sit undisturbed for at least one interval between feedings. But today we're using the covering up of the feeding zone as our excuse to go out there, in part to aerate, inspect, and bring in materials with which we can level things off. And when we came in here last time, we found a whole bunch of leaves that had been scattered out on the top surface. And since we didn't blend all that stuff in, there was a good bit of it remaining last time, which we were able to once again just spread out neatly across the top surface. But today, before we put the feeding zone indicators on, I'm going to apply a little bit more, because it is so nice when the systems have all that nice lovely leafy matter out on the surface. The napkins went in dry, and the leafy matter that we're going to be sprinkling in onto the top surface are also going to be going in dry. But I do feel like we've got sufficient moisture down here in these systems, just from handling this material that I'm pulling up, to compensate for any drying or any absorption of moisture that might occur from us putting in some dry materials. So I am kind of always in the back of my mind trying to gauge moisture levels to see where we stand, if we're in good shape, or if compensation one way or the other is necessary. But here I think we're definitely in good shape, so much so that we can definitely include some extra dry materials, especially the leaves. They're so nice, except they're stuck inside the box. They don't want to come out easily, so we'll help them along. Alright, that's going to make for a nice top dressing, if you ask me. Alright, last but not least, come in the nice new feeding zone indicators. Well, not last, because we still have the top covers to put on. But I think you get the idea that we're more or less done here with the European nightcrawlers on day 92, you know, getting feeding number 9. I don't think day 100 is going to be a check-in. That's only 8 days from now. Right now I do seem to have gotten back around to the start of all my systems within 10 days. That's the reason we're able to check in here after only a 10-day interval. But now that I got like a new system online, just a few days ago I launched the outdoor worm bag, and then, you know, other things. I got a feeling it's probably going to be a little bit after day 100 when we get back to these systems. So preemptively, happy 100 days in service, even though we won't be seeing you guys on that particular day. But we'll see you soon after. So that's it for the check-in, everyone. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, as always, please don't forget to leave me a quick thumbs up before you go. That's always really appreciated. And if you haven't done so already, please also consider subscribing to the channel. That's very much appreciated as well. All right, everyone, thanks for watching. Have a great day. Bye now.